So in the general market, what was really going down here is, right, we've got 5 days in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days up in a row. Good morning, everybody. So we're getting a little bit overbought, and we're also starting to hit levels of resistance. And so that's going to be really important. Let's take a look at the charts of the QQQs and the SPY and just kind of narrow this thing down. So you can see like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? When you get 5, that's going to be a little bit wild. So your market might grind today. So like, see how yesterday you started off really hot and then it started to go sideways. That's the norm, when you get overbought. So you'll see that even today, because we're still overbought and we haven't pulled back. The SPY's in a little bit more dangerous footing just because we're breaking the top of the Bollinger Band and we're at 95 stochastics. So you're talking about, getting pretty extended right there. We've got to kind of pull back a little bit or just have a series of kind of flat days that are going to be going to kind of work up that overbought condition all day. What you watching today? PTIX, PTGX, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of earnings plays today. We're going to have to narrow these down. Let's take a look at some of my faves. And you can see, like, man, there is earnings play after earnings play today. And so the key when you get something like this is, like, how do you narrow this list down? That's going to be really, really important. So these are kind of my favorites. And we're going to try to narrow these bad boys down. Let me just put this in the chat room for you guys. Oh, I'm copying the list for you guys. Oh, shit. Dun, 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 dun. All right. There it goes. Da, 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 da. Let me get this thing going, man. Copy and paste that into your watch list, boys and girls, and we'll get this thing started. All right, so let's go. So AAOI, this one is not, I wish it had broke over 50. I think that's going to be more powerful. But this thing is a really good mover. Statistically, I actually trade this one really well. So I want to keep this on the list. It probably has some room to 50, so we'll be watching that for an ORB or a quick pullback buy at the open. Add this Mitch in. This one's coming out of this pattern over here. 50 million share float. It should move okay. This is a B for me, and it's a B for me for the specific reason I've never actually traded this one before. And so I typically like to stay. If I've traded something before, I know how it moves, and that actually works out a little bit better for me. This DDD is kind of busting over this thing. This one typically has a lot of short interest in it. You guys will see a lot of short squeezes, right? We saw the mother of all short squeezes yesterday, right, in that Tesla. When you get a lot of shorts, you can go in. Any type of news can really spark like a big move. So that's just something, we want to keep an eye on. So this DDD may have some potential. The caveat on this that makes it a B plus instead of an A for me is price. This level of price, usually the intraday range might only be like 50 cents. I like to find stuff that could move like dollars versus pennies. That's just the nature, right? That's the nature of the beast for me. So just something to kind of keep an eye on is I don't like these little, these kind of 50 cent ranges because it just doesn't give me enough room to trade back and forth. That's a personal preference though. All right. HDP, this one's gapping up into this 20. It needs to get over this 20 to kind of start moving, but I think I'm going to take this one off the list because we already have so many of these bad boys. A big part of what it is, big part of some of this stuff is like, how do you clear up like a big list into a smaller list so it's more focused? When you have too many movers, it's going to be a little bit too many movers, it's going to be a little bit dicey. So like when I look at something like this, it's like you got another level here. You got just levels of resistance that it would really need to bust over to get going, right? And so that one's going to be a little bit tricky because like no matter which way you draw your trend lines, you're kind of running into a level of supply that could hold it back, you know. And the second part of this is like if you go back through, you know, it's had days where it's moved, you know, but like historically, it's not necessarily known as like a big wide-ranging mover. So I think we can probably take this one off. How I would probably put it back is, you know, about 15 minutes in the market, I'll just run a quick scan to see what's moving around. And from there, I'll be able to kind of, you know, narrow this list. So this ENBP is something also worth watching for an ORB or quick pullback buy. But I think I've got better and hotter ones over here. So I think I'm going to take that one off too. You know, I can't watch 13. So I'm on my laptop right now anyway. So I can't be able to watch 13 plus, you know, what's regular on my watch list. So I'd probably take this one off too. We got to prune this thing. We got boot. I actually do like this one. I've played this one a couple times in the past off earnings, and it has the ability to ramp and dump like really, really quickly. You can even see pre-market. It's got pretty good range on it. I'm going to keep that one. Boot, because its float's going to be so low, right? Like what you want to essentially, right, see right at that open is let it pop up and then just start to form, right? So like at the open, like if you get that quick spike, right, we just need to see a little bit of a consolidation like that at the open, and you can hit the pullback, or, right, we'll do more like what we did, you know, with Twilio, right? Twilio or Etsy yesterday, where, you know, you don't chase necessarily the open. Like you don't want to chase the open unless you get that easy consolidation. If you don't get the, you know, the easy play at the open, what you need to do is let it pull back to your EMAs, let it start to round, right? So like it doesn't have to necessarily test it. Once it starts to round, then you're good to go, and you could trade this thing back into the upside. And that becomes really important because, you know, that's a much cleaner type of play, you know, when you let them round and kind of round out like that, you know. So I do like that kind of play. Cyber, I think this one's going to be hot. Like if it busts over 70 at the open, I'll probably hit the first pullback on this thing. You know, it hasn't been a huge mover of recent, but I've seen this thing really cook on earnings, and we'll have to see the volume on it. Like if there's no liquidity, like less than 500,000 shares, I won't take it. But if there is, you know, we're going to be in good shape. Light actually tends to run with AAY at times. So I'm not surprised this one is coming up, but it did have top street view, mostly above expectations. That one should be pretty good. This IAC, I think, this one should be breaking out the all-time highs here. The one thing with IAC is like this thing, you know, when you have so many of them, the key is going to be like, is this thing going to be more powerful or less powerful than, you know, all the other ones? It is a breakout to all-time high, so I do think we got to keep it. Now, on the short side, look at this BCN. Look how many times you tap this 40 spot. The break under is going to be pretty powerful. I think this one's got a good shot to drop. Regina, right? So you kind of like, you're holding up. You've been rounding on these MAs. The intraday range on this thing so far, it popped up from 78 to 61, 62. So that's, what is that, 16 bucks right there in range? I think this one we've got to put on our list because it's going to have a hot range on it. The SSR might be on this thing, so we'll have to be careful. Like if the SSR is on it, right, like you got to be careful of the pop at the open. And then we got car. This MGA Magna, this one's breaking a really long-term trend line over here. It should have a decent range on it too. It's a little bit thicker in terms of float, which on the short side doesn't matter as much. So that's going to be okay. It'll just give more liquidity. SSR means short sale restriction, which means you can't short it on the bid. And then this pizza, man, I've never had any good luck trading this freaking pizza. It does look okay, but yeah, I'm like 0 for 5 on this thing this year. I'll take that off the list. As always, start to narrow down your list, right? Shit, it's time to go. Right? Start to narrow down your list. So always on your TC2000, right? For those of you guys that don't have TC2000, make sure you get it. Use like your 6-window layout and start adding in all your favorites on this thing. On the other side of things, from yesterday's plays, I would still keep Twilio and Tesla and Square and Sono on the list. You could probably X out some of these other ones, but I would definitely keep those on the list and keep this thing going. All right, so I always keep the 6-window layout on another list. All right, good. Guys, there's a lot of action today. So when you get a lot of action, man, you've got to go in with laser focus. You got to come in with the right plan. Like, don't sit there and watch all these. Narrow it down into the stuff that you personally like. What do you trade well? What are the price of stocks that you trade well, right? Where's the action on your probabilities? Because it's not the probability of a pattern. It's the probability of how you trade certain patterns. And then the key is going to be, right, wait for it. You know what you have to do at the open. There's only a handful of good patterns out there. Let's go do what we do, man. Let's go do what we do. I'll be in the chat room if anybody needs me.